And what a spectacular way to introduce you to the sunset safari here on this wonderful Sunday afternoon in the northern reaches of the Greater Kruger National Park. We're sitting here live, coming from the northern reaches of the Kruger National Park, like I said, or actually more western regions. But here we are, we're sitting with a beautiful male leopard, Tingana, 9 years old, approaching his 10th birthday, in his prime, resting, as one always should on a Sunday afternoon, in the shade. My name is James Hendry. On camera today, we have got the inimitable Jean-Andre Hoppy the Calves Gerding. On the other vehicle, we've got Brent Leo Smith, and he is being filmed by the enormous Brian Joubert, and in the final control, Rebecca. And she is being helped by Kirsten today, so that's the team. With you, Connor has been putting this vehicle together. Jigger is back from a prolonged absence in the hospital. Here he is, or she is. I'm not sure if Jigger is a masculine or feminine term. Anyway, you are most welcome on this live safari, and if you happen to have strolled across this website by mistake or while you were searching for something else, it is very nice to have you with us, and we'd love you to talk to us. Hashtag Safari Live if you want to tweet, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. It is good to have you along, and for the next 3 hours, we're going to be exploring this piece of wilderness that we call home, that we're very privileged to call home. It is 1,200 hectares here, called Juma. That's where we centralize our operations. Off to the eastern side, very newly, Cheetah Plains, a beautiful piece of land, 550 hectares of that, and then another 600 hectares off to the west of us called Arathusa. So in total, we traverse roughly 5,500 acres of land, which is just marvelous. So let's take a look back at Tingana. We probably won't spend too much time here because he is asleep and not being particularly action-filled, but what a great way to start our drive. There were some elephants making a noise around the camp, so we'll perhaps go and have a look at them a little bit later, or see if we can find them. In the meantime, I think Brent is hieing his way to Cheetah Plains, where there were, in fact, not so ironically, some cheetah seen this morning, and he's hoping that they've moved north across the Mala Mala boundary onto Cheetah Plains and those wonderful open areas that they have there, and with any luck, you'll be looking at some cheetah, the other spotted cat that we get here. And this is Tingana, like I say, a male leopard, pushing his 10th birthday fairly soon, I think. I'm not sure exactly when his birthday is. Perhaps one of our regular viewers would like to tell me when his birthday is. I'm not sure we actually know exactly when it is, but it'll be sometime this year. Obviously. It wasn't meant to be amusing, genre. It's just that I'm an idiot. So some lovely golden light filtering through, and a leopard will lie in the shade like this because, of course, his coat is dappled, much like the light underneath one of these combretum trees that he's lying underneath, a bush willow tree. So while he's not, to our sort of colour-aware eyes, particularly camouflaged, to many of the eyes out here belonging to the antelope that he might want to eat, he will be relatively camouflaged there. But he's not looking to hunt at the moment. He's looking to recover from an injury that he has sustained. We're not sure how, quite possibly bitten by a hyena about 3 or 4 nights ago, but he looks to be recovering quite nicely. His belly actually looks quite full, so I think he may have eaten. I don't know that he would have killed anything, excuse me, I don't know that he would have killed anything large, but he would maybe have nabbed a scrub hare for a snack, or perhaps the odd lizard if he was really sore. The temperature is a balmy 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a wonderful temperature. It's just the perfect kind of autumnal atmosphere that we have here, and it's slightly more cool summer than autumn, simply because we have all of this green vegetation after some late summer rains. So Deborah Armchair Traveller, as you have correctly guessed, this is Tingana, and I think, as I just said, I think it is actually a full belly. I think that he has been eating. I'm not sure what it was that he ate. We certainly haven't seen him with a large kill. He is still a little bit injured, so like I say, I doubt it was a very large animal. I don't think he's killed an adult male impala, for example. It may have been a scrub hare or two. It may have been a little warthog. He's very good at killing warthog, is Tingana. and devouring them. Maybe it was a steenbok or something like that he ate last night. We didn't see him for the whole of yesterday, so it isn't quite possible that he ate something during that period and we didn't see it. So I think he's going to be fine. There was lots of worry about the injury that he had and that perhaps he wouldn't survive it because, of course, a leopard, if it is so severely injured that it can't hunt, it won't survive. It lives on its own, so it must fend for itself. No one else is going to fend for it, unlike with the hyenas and lions and wild dogs. But he seems to have recovered, and as most of the animals out here are, extremely resilient they are. They're not in need of a medical attention every 3.5 seconds like we as human beings are. He seems to be absolutely fine, and I think he's going to continue his domination and indeed expansion of his territory as Mvula off to the eastern side gets older and weaker. High action there. He seems to be flicking his tail around. Okay, we're going to spend another 5 minutes with this leopard, everybody, and then we're going to head off and see if we can't find some elephants and that sort of thing, because the day is still pretty warm. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. He's moved, Jean-Andre, you said 2 meters since this morning.
Yes.
That's an impressive physical exertion. So we'll spend another 4.5 minutes now with him, and then we'll head off and see if we can't find something else. We'll probably pop back here later in the evening. Just to remind you that there is going to be a fireside chat here this year, at least today. A fireside chat today where we'll be chatting about some of the leopards, we'll be chatting about Karula's cubs, we'll be chatting about our new traverse on Cheetah Plains, and we'll be chatting about our new presenter, Sam Chevalier. And in case you're wondering where he's been, he has had a bit of an ear infection, so we had to send him off to the doctor today. He is back. They did not amputate any piece of him, so he looks as he did when he went to the doctor, so that's a good positive thing. He will tell you a bit about himself at the fireside chat, and if you have any questions for him or anyone else for the fireside chat, you can send them through now if you want, and we'll note them down, and that's a good way of getting your question in for the fireside chat. That will happen a half hour before the end of the show, so it's 6 o'clock Central African time. It's fixed 6:30. Why are you shaking your head?
You're fiddling with something.
Oh, sorry. I was fiddling with my binoculars. I do apologize. Ashley, you want to know if we know who his mother is or who his father is. Now, I always get a little bit confused here. As far as I'm aware, Tingana came from Lion Sands, which is down south of the reserve. So he was born to a leopard there. I think it was Tingana, not Mvula, who was born on Lion Sands. So we don't know who his father is. I think they know who his mother was, but she will be, unfortunately, most likely have shaken off the mortal coil some time back. And so he came into this area as a dispersal male, and that's a good thing, because it means that he brought with him new genetics for a fairly narrow genetic pool of this particular area. Unlike Mvula, who I think was born in and around this area and is therefore probably quite closely related to everyone else. I may have got the stories mixed up between Mvula and Tingana, but one of them comes from outside this area, down by Lion Sands, which is the southern end of the Sabi Sands, which is the collection of private reserves in which we find ourselves. Right, I've had enough of this leopard. He's fast asleep. He's not doing anything. Why should he? It's Sunday afternoon on a balmy Sunday autumnal afternoon. Let's go and find some elephants. I heard some yelling next to the camp while I was sitting outside under a tree reading my book earlier today. We don't do that in the summertime, of course, because then you melt. This time of the year is perfect for sitting out in the middle of the day and contemplating the world. On we go. Now, we do have a slightly different microphone set up on Jigger, and that is simply because, well, you don't need to know the reasons for it, but if I do become difficult to hear, please feel free to shout to Final Control, who will in turn shout at me, and I will attempt to remedy any quietness on my behalf. Right, so So our modus operandi from here is going to be to go towards the Gallagher waterhole, where I think the elephants were congregating at some stage, and if they're not there, they're probably somewhere close to the Juma Dam Pan. And I don't know if any of you have been watching on the Juma Dam Cam, which is focused on the Juma Dam Pan. I don't know if you've been watching it during the course of the day. I don't know if there have been some elephants there, but I suspect that there probably were. So let's see if we can find them. We're very happy to have Jigga back. And Susie, sorry, I'm getting intermittent signal here. Susie, you want to know about the injured Birmingham boy, and is there any news on him? Not sure at this stage. There were 4 Birmingham boys seen today, 1 on Buffelshoek, 3 down at Cheetah Plains. So I think he's probably fine. I'm not actually sure. He wasn't part of the 3 that Brent saw this morning at Cheetah Plains, but there was a big male lion in relatively good condition seen on Buffelshoek today, so I think it sounds like he's okay. And Snoop, you want to find some cheetah? Well, in that case, I'm going to hand you over to Brent Leo Smith, and he will hopefully take you to the cheetah.
Welcome to the Sunset Safari. After quite the spectacular sunrise safari on Cheetah Plains, we are back in search of cheetah. So they were lying up just to the south of the edge of southern edge of Cheetah Plains, and fingers crossed they have moved further to the north. So we're going to go see if we can find it. Sorry guys, just live radio quickly. Afternoon, I think I'm the only one mobile. I'm just getting mobile.
I've just spotted a butterfly, everyone, which is Gendre's favourite thing in the world to film. There it is. It's an African joker.
No, I can't see it.
You can. You absolutely lie. Now it's flown away. Oh, you've got it there. Track it.
Where?
It's gone.
No, I don't see it. I actually don't.
No, it's moved back. I'm just going to... Everybody, it is a pretty butterfly, so I'm going to go back. And, well, first look at this one, John. Can you see this one here?
Yes.
That is one of the whites, as far as I'm aware. They're beautiful. We've had such an amazing explosion of butterflies over the last week or so, and that's a result, of course, of all these flowers, these annual flowers and herbs that have popped up because of the late summer rains that we've had. And it's been just, if you go running in the middle of the day or walking through quarantine clearings, through the herbaceous stuff. Sorry, excuse me 1 second. Rebecca, that's the wrong radio. Sorry, we're just getting a couple of communications from the final control. So have you walked through the sort of meadow-like area that is the quarantine clearings? Butterflies fly up all around you and you feel like you're something of a fairy tale. I'm going to go back towards the other one, John, because I know you love filming butterflies so much. And this is a lovely African... Oh, there are lots of butterflies here, Gendre. So exciting for you. There is a male common diadem there. Well done. Brilliant. You see, you're actually quite good at it. You just, I don't know why you don't like it. There's a yellow pansy. That one's flown off. Don't worry about the yellow pansy, everyone. That is the male common diadem. Now, the interesting thing about that is that the female looks absolutely nothing like the male. The female, you all know, or many of you will know what a monarch butterfly looks like. I will show you a picture. But the female is a mimic of the monarch butterfly, and I just think this is the most wonderful story. So, if we look back here, there it is. There is the common diadem male, okay? Right? There is the female common diadem. So she looks completely different. She looks exactly like a monarch butterfly, which I think we'll probably find over here. There we are. You can see that's the monarch butterfly. male and female look relatively the same, don't they? Yes, they do. And the interesting thing is that it's a thing called Batesian mimicry. And what happens is that the monarch butterfly is toxic. It feeds on milkweed, and many people know the story of the monarch butterfly, and I know that they migrate in huge numbers, millions of them, all over the United States, from Central America, I think, into the southern states of the United States. And we get African monarchs here which do the same kind of thing. They don't migrate so much, but they eat milkweed, which makes them toxic, and that means that birds don't eat them. Now, the diadem, with the female diadem, is not toxic at all, but through the process of millions of years of evolution, the female common diadem is colored like the monarch so that she is confused by predators for an African monarch. So predators think that the female common diadem is a poisonous butterfly, even though she isn't, which is brilliant. The male, of course, doesn't need to be poisonous, at least because his sole function is to quickly mate with the female, and then it doesn't matter if he gets eaten. So it's an amazing, amazing adaptation that the diadems have evolved over the years. That is the story of the common diadem genre. On we go. I may have heard something from Rebecca. Did you hear anything? What did she say? Catherine, you say there are such pretty butterflies here. Everything is beautiful in Africa. Well, of course, Gendre is in Africa, so therefore, inescapably, no, not everything is as beautiful. I couldn't resist that. That was really nasty of me. Catherine, yes, most things in Africa are as beautiful as all the butterflies. The trees, the grasses, the flowers, the great swathe of iconic African mammals, and even the peoples and cultures are largely very interesting and very beautiful indeed. Thank you for that, Catherine. Sorry, Gendre. Couldn't resist. Let's head back towards the Pan, Galago Pan, where with any luck there will be a large herd of elephants waiting for us. If not, there'll be something to look at, I'm sure. Maybe some more butterflies, Gendre. Riveting butterflies. All right, let's try again with Brent. He seems to be in a much more stable signal area, and I will hopefully see you with some elephants.
Sorry about that. We still haven't quite figured out where all the gremlins live here on Cheetah Plains. So we're heading towards the southern boundary where we last saw the cheetah. Very exciting. And these are two male cheetah. Now, sorry about that. So we're driving along a little sort of drainage system or riverbed here. Now, this is one of the areas Tundi likes to hang out in. And we're just having a quick look for any tracks. Looks like a very exciting, wow. Do you see that, Brian? I saw on the way down here a tree as well, a buffalo thorn that has got a serious adornment today. Look at that. Common jokers and vagrants mostly. And it's all over that buffalo thorn. I see the tiny little flowers that's attracting the butterflies. It's like the bush is sparkling almost with all the fluttering of the beautiful butterflies. I think that's a good ermine, Brian.
Me too.
So if there are any of you who are new you are more than welcome to pop me a question, and you can do that by sending an email to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter to get hold of us and ask us if you have any questions about cheetah plains or about cheetah or about animals or the bush in general. We would love to hear from you. So we're seeing quite a few different things. Some of the bush is very similar to Djuma, but some is very different. There's big open sodic areas. And Brady's wondering what birds of prey have I seen, and what am I likely to see that might be different. I think we're probably going to get the same sort of birds of prey, Bradley. We did see, unfortunately it wasn't on air, but we have seen a little sparrowhawk or a shikra on this morning, but he didn't hang around for too long. We're now going to just turn around and jump down towards the double M boundary. So, as you might have noticed, Wendy's clutch cable broke on the Sunrise Safari, and we will have that up and running by tomorrow. But so Jigger is back from being a 6-month service, and Simon's wondering, will we ever do a drive with 3 vehicles at a time, or will we keep it to 2? So Simon, I think we'll keep it to 2. Hopefully once bushwalk cameras is fixed and stuff like that, we will be moving up and having a bushwalk as well. But till for then, I think, and even after, we will still keep it to 2 vehicles, not 3. It helps to have a third for exactly the reason that happened this morning. We can just jump on the next vehicle and off we go. So Donna's wondering why we don't see cheetah more often in Djuma. Donna, it's quite simply because these 2-male cheetah really like these big open areas that run up here along the Kruger National Park boundary, and this is sort of part of their core of their home range. So they pass through here once or twice a week. Djuma, they don't have access to that type of a landscape. So they do come very occasionally, but they don't come there as regularly as they do here. So Julia is wondering, will we see the world's largest bird here, the ostrich? There's a good chance. I think especially as it gets drier, we might see some ostrich. And we'll be definitely keeping a lookout for them. Just checking my map, making sure we don't wander across where we're not supposed to be. Snoop is wondering, do we have a map of cheetah plains? I do, on my telephone. So and everyone else does as well, have that said map. So a big Safari Live welcome to Chris, who's a new viewer. Hi, Chris. Chris would like to know, are the animals on cheetah plains more frightened of us than the ones on Djuma? Not necessarily, only if they're coming in from the Western Kruger, where they don't see a lot of people. There are no commercial operations, there's no roads, it's a big wilderness area in Kruger there. So occasionally we might see some unrelaxed animals, but generally the majority of the animals are going to be just as relaxed as in at Djuma. Okay, so now I'm going to start checking quite carefully for tracks. Wasn't too far from here where we saw those two boys. So what we're looking for now, if they haven't moved too far, is that very distinct round head shape, and sometimes looks like elephant dung lying in the shade. Now, they were sleeping on this very termite mound when we first spotted them. So we just want to check carefully in the shade here. Okay, it looks like they're not here, so, ooh, hang on. They're my binoculars. No, it is a stick. Okay, so we're going to go head back towards the east now, maybe check a little bit further down here, see if we can find any sign of them. While we do that, let's jump back on board with Commander Bond.
I spotted another butterfly, everyone. Becoming something of a joke to make Jean film butterflies. He confessed to me that he doesn't dislike butterflies, everyone. He just says to me that he feels that sitting above them like this, when we could be filming them on the bushwalk, for example, close by with a slow-motion camera, would be much more befitting the magnificence of the butterflies that we get. Is that right, Jean? It's not just that you're a lazy git. No, it's not that. Okay, good. Here, we actually do have a butterfly. We do, sorry, I don't have a lapel mic. We do have a butterfly. It's an orange tip. And the reason I've got out of the car is not to try and capture the hapless thing, but to show you what it's eating. A very familiar flower. And I'm going to pick some because there are lots of them. And this beautiful flower is called plumbago. Yes? No? Oh, no? Focus. Having focus troubles, everybody. We will fix that shortly. So that is the white plumbago. And if I'm not mistaken, just around the corner here, we've got some blue plumbago. Come with me. No, I am mistaken. It's all white plumbago. Absolutely no scent whatsoever. And very cleverly, what happens is that the sort of sexual organs of the flower are up there, and once it's fertilized, you can see the flower dies off like it has there, and the seed forms in there. And these are very sticky. So they'll stick to my finger like that, you can see. And so that's how it disperses the seeds. An animal will come past here, these seeds will sort of stick, they're almost like sort of sticky Velcro. They'll stick to the fur of whatever animal walks past here, like a bushbuck or a nyala, and they'll be deposited in some other sort of shaded area like this. There's another butterfly, a monarch. Well done, Jean-Andre. Didn't even have to be prompted to do that one. Well done. Okay, on we go. The elephants were not where I thought they were going to be, I'm afraid. So we're going to head off towards Buffelshoek Dam and see if we can't find something drinking there. It's not a very hot day, but it's certainly hot enough to have the odd drink. Do we need to... Okay. Steph, you want to know if you should call me the Butterfly Whisperer. Steph, if you would like to call me the Butterfly Whisperer, I'm more than happy to acknowledge you're calling me the Butterfly Whisperer. But I think possibly a better Butterfly Whisperer is Brent Leo Smith. I think he's done very well with the butterflies this season. But Steph, thank you. I'm more than happy to take it from you. I'm going to have to ask Rebecca if she wouldn't mind giving us a quick break to try and reset the camera because the focus is just not working. So I'm just going to wait for permission. And Brent is off the vehicle, so you're just going to have to look at me blurry for the next little while, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. You know, these cameras take an awful beating driving around here every day on these bumpy roads. So sometimes they just need a little bit of TLC. Andre is looking so deeply unhappy, I can't tell you. He's a real perfectionist, you see. And so his face is the picture of great tragedy at the moment. Don't worry, Jean-Andre. Our viewers will forgive you. You'll forgive him, won't you, everybody? It's not his fault, I promise. I look in focus here. What's wrong with me?
No, you are, but it says you're 3 meters away.
It says I'm 3 meters away. Oh, I see. It's no good at all. Another great advantage of the autumns like this is the great, beautiful blue sky. Okay, Brent is back on the car. We're going to go across to him. We'll try and fix the camera and see you shortly.
So, we're still in search of those shikankankies, or shikankanka, which is the Shangaan name for a cheetah. I'm just going to have a quick look around the corner, and then I think I want to head towards the east. So no sign of any tracks here yet. So Maurice is wondering, do we see secretary birds down here? And are the plains open enough for them? They definitely are. We haven't seen one yet, but there is a possibility we might see a secretary bird out on the open grassland. Generally, secretary birds prefer a little bit longer grass than's on here. And the grass is so short this year because of the lack of rain that we've had. But it doesn't mean they won't be there. Sometimes we might get very lucky. Hello, Gracie. Nice to have you with us again. Gracie would like to know, do we have daisies on cheetah plains? Daisies make people smile, and that's why Gracie named Bachelor Bob the hippo's girlfriend Princess Daisy. Gracie, we don't, but how's this? I will find you a flower before the end of safari, just for you, For those who are wondering, Gracie is 8 years old and a staunch Safari Live supporter. We're just double checking here for tracks and also checking all termite mounds and other places in this area that if I was a cheetah I might want to have a snooze on. Beautiful late summer or early winter's afternoon. Very pleasant temperature, not too hot, not too cold. I think it is going to get a bit chilly later, but that's a good thing. We're going to have a fire to keep warm next to on the fireside chat later on this evening. So James is wondering, are there any dry river systems like there are on Djuma and Arathusa on Cheetah Plains? There are, but they're not as big. It's not one we can drive down. So we were driving along the edge of one at the beginning of the safari, having a look to see if we could see any leopard tracks. Tundi has been known to be in this area, as well as Mr. Q has been seen recently around here, and a male leopard called Shivambalan, who is one of Karula's sprogs. Where are you hiding, little cheetahs? Well, if we don't find a cheetah, there might be something else to find. No tracks. They might be walking along the parallel road to us, so hopefully they do duck into the north. So Tim, who was lucky enough to live in Zambia many years ago, said he saw a great deal of baobab trees. And Tim would like to know, do we get any on Cheetah Plains or in South Africa? Not at all on Cheetah Plains, and none in the Sabi Sands. There are a few, but they are being planted by people. The most southerly occurring baobab is not too far from here in the Kruger National Park. And if you go to the north of South Africa along the Limpopo River, it is an area famous for many and very large baobabs. So they do occur in South Africa, but not naturally in the Sabi Sands. We're coming up to one of these big open areas. Hopefully the cheetah have moved to here. See that shade there, Brian, next to the... See what I'm looking at? Is a stick. Oh, it's a very confusing stick. I thought, ha-ha, cheetah, I have found you. Let's just double check. Yes, it's very much a stick. A cheetah stick. We're going to have to remember that cheetah stick while we drive around here, because I think that might catch us more than once. There we go. Nice open area there. Just have a quick look with the binoculars. Oh, look who's there. I didn't even notice him. Sneaky thumb. Well, where are you hiding? Is that another stick that's confusing me, Brian? Yeah. Yes, very much stick. Sticks, sticks, sticks. Sticks looking like cheetahs, naughty sticks. Okay, I just have to have a quick afternoon meeting while you look at beautiful open areas, and while we have our afternoon meeting, let's jump back on board with James.
So we've hardly moved since you last saw us, everyone, and that's because we've been fixing the camera. I say we, but I mean Jean-Andre's been fixing the camera. I've been reading a book. It's been very pleasant. I've been enjoying the sun on my face while I've read about the butterflies of the region. The Painted Lady was the last one I read about, and I shall try and find you one for Jean-Andre to overcome his moral rectitude. And I'm not sure that rectitude is actually a word, nor do I know what it means, but it seemed like a good word to use in that particular context. Somebody please tell me what rectitude means. I really don't know what it means. I'm hoping that we'll find a painted lady and Jean-Andre will overcome his moral inhibitions and film it from the lofty position that we find ourselves here. The camera is fixed. I'm now in sharp focus. The camera thinks that I'm the correct distance from it, that I am. That's the good thing. So we're still heading towards Bibbulshoek Dam. Quite astoundingly, we haven't reached it yet, and that's really astounding because Jigger was re-kitted out today. And although she sounds like a V8, she isn't. She's only got 6 cylinders, and only some of them work some of the time. Because there's a small hole in the exhaust pipe, possibly from Brent B. Smith chasing wild dogs. Could have been me, though. For those of you wondering what I'm talking about, our vehicles all have names. And this particular one is called Jigger. Andre, do you think Jigger is a masculine or feminine name? All vehicles are feminine. Okay. Maybe Jigger can be like Leslie or Robin. Lovely question coming through from Donna while we talk about naming things. And Donna, you want to know what the Shangaan term for a small leopard cub would be. Well, there are 2 ways of saying small in Shangaan or in Zulu, and the way it's done is to add an extension to the end of the noun that you want to use. So if you were to say a leopard, it would be yingwe. A small leopard, you would add the suffix ana. So you'd say yingwana, which means small leopard. So in Zulu, for example, a person is umuntu, and a small person or a child, mating monarchs. see them? There. Mating monarchs, everybody. It looks like substantially more effort for one party than the other, I must say. That's fantastic. Look at that. And there you can see the many spots that they have on the back or hind wing, whereas the diadem, which is the mimic, only has one. So, Donna, paparati is the Shungan word for butterfly. A small butterfly would be paparatana. Paparatana. Then you can also say, if you want to say a small one, you can say ingwe yinzongo. So ingwe is the leopard, yinzongo, the adjective for small. And the yi in front of that is what's known as a concord. Ingwe yinzongo. And if you want to say something's very small, you'd say yingwana yinzongo ngofu. A very small little leopard. I think the one who's holding on to the tree there is possibly exhausted, having carried his partner about. Sorry, I know my audio has been a little bit low. It's because I'm not talking into the microphone like I should be. That should be a bit better. Right, Jean-André, I think they've got a bit kind of shy, don't you? Shall we press on?
Yeah. Oral obligations.
Okay. That was a lovely question. Thank you, Donna. Not surprised about that. Yeah.
So we are continuing to check these lovely little open patches. And here we go, look at this. So far, not much happening. Now, these plans will be seasonally visited by lots of different creatures. And there we have that lovely big herd of wildebeest this morning. Oh, look at that. Battalier in a beautiful arc. Well, where are you going that way now? Brian can't follow you there.
Yeah.
It's where's he going? Where did he go? Where's he going? Oh, there he is. Sorry, I thought he might be looking like he's going to drop. So that's why I was quite intently looking at him, like maybe he spotted something we haven't. Now, battaliers are often the first bird to arrive on a carcass. Exceptional eyesight. They fly quite a lot lower than vultures, and vultures will often watch them, and when they drop, that's when the vultures sometimes will follow them. And that beautiful cruising. Lovely stiff wings, just using the wind, gliding. You can see that very distinct sort of balancing act with that very short tail. That's why they're constantly sort of overcorrecting. Oh, dropped his legs for a little stretch there. One of the definitely iconic birds of the African bushveld. Magic. He's got a bit of a thermal, gone a bit higher. I was hoping he had spotted those cheetahs on a hill and was about to descend and have a little snack. It's nice tracking there, Brian. So Brian and I are trying to drive all the roads we haven't driven yet. So we drove this one. Yes, we did drive this one this morning. And we're going to go past Buffalo Pan, which is a new one for us. There's Cheetah Plains Pan coming up on the right. Go past there quickly, see if there's anything at the waterhole. Oh, isn't this just magnificent? Here we have Cheetah Plains Pan on the right. Oh, nice and full. And Sam is wondering for clay. You can get very, very stuck in it. No, there's not too much here. Maybe a little bit down in the drainage systems in that little river beds. What we got there? You see him, Ryan? A cute little bird on the right. Okay, so a little bit to the right, and that piece of mud sticking out. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Right a bit more. Right. And out a little bit. There. Aha! Now, here's one to test the birders. What bird is that? It's a little wader. And I don't know if we've seen too many of these on the live drives. So I'm having a good look at him. And look at that very distinct ring around his eye. And the feather's also quite distinct as it moves. See a very quite a long bill. It is one of the little waders. Now you can see what colour his legs are. That's always quite important. We can't see his legs, can we, really? But who can identify this mystery wader? If you know the answers, you're very smart, and you must send your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv. Oh, little scratch. Or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. What bird is this? And I think it might be a new one for some of your bird lists. So while you ponder what feathered creature that may be, let's jump across to James, who's got a slightly bigger animal, but also one that likes to spend its times in the pans.
High action here at Biffleshoek Dam, everybody. A buffalo bull is lying down. He is not alone. He is accompanied by hundreds of terrapins that are pottering about, eating things. Sorry. He's pottering about, eating things in the water. Not him, the terrapins, that is. They're pottering about, eating things in the water. The insects that come and land here, possibly the odd sort of subaquatic snail or mollusk or something like that. They're eating all sorts of things. They're sort of the scavengers, if you like, of the water. And that is the serrated hinged terrapin. Turning the game drive radio down, which is disturbing my concentration. Now, this buffalo bull, of course, like many of his colleagues around here, has eschewed living in the herd. He likes to live on his own now because he's able to sit exactly where he wants to be. He's around the water when he wants to have a drink. He's around the mud when he wants to have a wallow. And he's close enough to grazing in the evening for him to have a meal and not have to go too far to get it. Sounds like the ultimate form of retirement for a single bachelor. And that's precisely what this chap is. But he will, of course, join up every so often with other bachelor bulls and they will form these sort of grumpy groups of retired old men. Lots of birdsong you can possibly hear. You can hear the Birchall starling going. Now, dead silent, of course. There. That's the Birchall starling. You can hear a dove coming in. I don't think you can see. Can you see the starling, John? Ah, you got him. Well done. You can see him singing there. And you can possibly also hear the dove going. Lovely. And it really does have a real Sunday afternoon feel to it this afternoon. And by that I mean it's very relaxed. It feels like the bush is at peace. Everything seems to be just taking it easy slightly, which is of course completely ridiculous because there's no difference between this afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, or yesterday afternoon. It's just a feeling that has developed, and I think possibly within the human psyche we're so used to Sundays being days of off or rest. And so if you do happen to come across a gorgeous autumnal afternoon like this, the inevitable feeling is one of a relaxed Sunday. Alrighty, let's move on from Biffleshoek Dam. Right, let us continue. See what else we can find. This is fantastic. We have just had a first-time tweeter or emailer, I'm not sure which it was, Betsy. Betsy, you have sent us your first email, and we thank you very much for it, everybody. Betsy is 92 years young and has just sent us her first email. Thank you very much, Betsy. I don't think it's the first email you've ever sent. It's just the first one you've sent to us. So we're very grateful to it, and you want to know when our summer ends. Well, Betsy, our summer has kind of come to an end already. So as you, I assume you're getting hold of us from the Northern Hemisphere somewhere. And please do tell us where you're from when you do get hold of us next time, because it's so nice to know where in the world you're watching from. As your spring starts to come around, and I'm sure where you're living now, the blossoms are blooming, the daffodils and things are out of the ground, and the odd other summer flower or spring flower will be starting to bloom. And so as your spring turns, so does our autumn or our fall. We're going into autumn now, and then we'll be in winter. Sort of June, July, August is our winter time. But our winter, of course, Betsy, is nothing like as terrifying as a Northern Hemisphere winter. The coldest temperature we get here is about 4 degrees Celsius, which sits at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's not too bad. And then in the middle of the day, it'll go all the way up to the mid-70s sometimes, which is marvellous. Not a lot of mammal life out here today for some reason. Those elephants that I heard calling next to the camp seem to have gone, well, disappeared into the ether, really. They've flown away, wherever it is. I don't know where they've gone. So we'll just bumble along here in Sunday afternoon mode and see what prettiness we can find. What is that infernal banging in the back of the car? Other than my appalling driving. No, we don't know. We will fix it at some stage. Well done. Fix it. It's just stopped. And Laura, you're in New York City. While we're driving along, having just seen a buffalo bull, you know about, you're clearly not a first-time watcher, you know about these animals that eat buffalo horns. Now, we will probably go past some buffalo horns that are being eaten as we speak. on dead buffalo, everybody, you get these moths called keratin-eating moths, and they like to eat the keratin on the buffalo horns. And a buffalo horn, of course, is bone in the middle, and then a very thick keratin sheath. And these keratin-eating moths will eat away and then pupate in the keratin of the horns, and that's basically how they survive. So it's a moth, normally. Laura, a kind of moth, a keratin-eating moth, and it's their caterpillar or larval stage that eats the keratin. The moth, I'm sure, will then go off and do what most moths do, and that is either not eat at all, or it will eat on nectar, feed on nectar of plants. So remember, there are a lot of adult insects that don't feed. They don't have mouth parts that feed. All right, I'm going to go and try and find the buffalo skull I'm thinking of with the keratinous-eating moths. In that meantime, you're doing a quiz with Brent. Enjoy that, and I would love to know what he asked you. See you just now.
So, welcome back. We have not seen much since we left you, but we are perusing, exploring, just soaking up the sun and the excitement of a new traverse area. Well done, though, to Joan Tree Girl, and Jared. You were spot on with your answer there. It was a wood sandpiper. Here we go. How's that, Brian? There we go. You can see the wood sandpiper. Sorry, I don't understand. Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. So you can see that's the non-breeding plumage. So they become a little bit more dark during breeding. And you can see they are seasonal migrants. That blue means they move around. So they're generally with us for all months except the two coldest months, or two of the coldest months, June and July. And they will move off then. Okay. Oh, I see a mammal, Brian. Something. A mammal who is defending his patch of open plains against any other males of his species, hoping that the ladies are on their way. There we go. Hello, Mr. Wildly Beast. Bob is wondering why there are so few grazers on cheetah plains. Is it because the grass is so short? No, not at all, Bob. I think it's seasonal. Animals will move in and out between these areas depending on water availability and that. So you'll find this area probably has a lot more big herds of buffalo than Juma, but they come in and out. They're not as resident as a lot of our species. And Ashley was also wondering why we don't see as many sort of Inyala and Kudu and things like that. And well, actually the main reason, or Inyala and bushbuck in specific, is we don't have a big drainage system or riverbed like the Mawati. So that's why we're not going to see as many. There might be a few around those smaller little river systems. And there's a good number of impala. Wildebeest will come in and out, but zebra will also come in and out. But I think as it gets drier, this area is going to become more and more productive. So we're going to leave the open plains for a little while and head towards 3-in-a-row pan. So the plan is that we're going to head on through, maybe look for some leopards up on the crests here, and then as it gets a little bit later, we'll head down back towards those open areas. So cheetah being crepuscular, most active at dusk and dawn, might get moving a little later. So Annie in British Columbia says she's never convinced that cheetah are going to be there once we see them because they are capable of moving such distances. And how big is a cheetah's territory? So they have more home ranges than territory, and a male cheetah in this part of the world probably has up to 15,000 hectares, 20,000 hectares. So those two male cheetah move over about half of the Sabi sands in total. So they do have very big home ranges, and it all depends on the area. So you'll find home ranges in a place like the Serengeti or Masai Mara, much smaller, just due to the nature of the terrain and the availability of food and females and all those type of things. Hello, Daniela, who is in Johannesburg, South Africa. Daniela would like to know, how fast can a cheetah run? Well, they can do 0 to 60 miles an hour, which is about 96 kilometers an hour, in 3 seconds. So they've got incredible sort of and very quick top end, but their top speed is about 120 kilometers an hour. They can't maintain that top speed for very long, only a couple of 100 meters. But 120 kilometers an hour, which is around 70 miles per hour, is a cheetah's top speed. So Marilyn in Montana is wondering what a bird we saw on the sunrise safari. Was it an amma falcon or a red-footed? Marilyn and I said that one was a red-footed. A red-footed, slightly darker than the amma. So this area we're currently in is that area where quarantine was last seen, so I'm having a good look for tracks. I know a lot of you would be ecstatic if we happened to bump into Mr. Q. For those of you who knew, Quarantine is a male leopard that we spent an incredible amount of time with early last year, so very exciting if we can find him again. So while we continue to look for things that are living, it seems James is fascinated with things that are dead. Let's go see what he's found.
Hello, everybody. We have found the buffalo skull of which I spoke. Let me just get out of the shadows of the vehicle. And, Laura, there you can see where the skull has been eaten away by moths. Now, ooh, it seems to be leaking. That's very odd. It seems to be leaking. The buffalo's brain has clearly rotted finally and is now leaking out of the skull. I'm talking rubbish. It's just collected some rainwater, excuse me. A fly went into my throat. So this sort of evidence of destruction here is the moth eating away at the skull of the buffalo, or the keratin. And you can see there that the skull is bone. The smell is unspeakable. Ooh. Now that really is disgusting. I'm not sure, I'm sure it's just rainwater that's gathered in there, but I don't want anything to do with it. Anyway, so the moth eats away here, and normally what it does is the caterpillar of the moth, it would then produce some kind of a chrysalis. It would then pupate out of that and fly off and eat whatever it was going to eat. I don't know why there aren't any pupa or chrysalises on this particular example, but that's what happens. You can see bone in the skull and then the keratin that comes out of it. The smell, I have to tell you, something otherworldly. Okay, on we go. We shall continue our quest. I'm afraid it does really feel very quiet out here indeed. We have seen no further mammals at all, plenty of butterflies, all of them flying at high speed. So Jeandre has refused to to look at them even. Okay. Yeah, we're now in the far eastern section of Djuma. Simon, just carrying on the topic of the keratin-eating moths, you want to know if they only eat dead buffalo horns, or... Well, yes, they do. They only eat dead horns, but not only buffalo. They'll eat the horns of kudu and any other antelope species. So anywhere where there is keratin that is not being eaten, they will eat it with ease. And yeah, there's nothing else for them to eat. And I'm not sure if I understand the second part of your question, but you say, I'm going to ask Rebecca to read it to me again. Okay, now I see where you're going with this. Okay, so you basically want to know, how do they know that it's, well, not know that it's dead, but how do they only eat dead keratin as opposed to living keratin? I think half the reason that you so often see male antelope and buffalo scratching their heads is because the larvae, the small caterpillars and the eggs of those moths are probably inside there already. And so you see the animals scratching their heads often against bushes. And I mean, buffalo especially that top bit, it always looks like it's itchy. And I think you'll find that the eggs of the moths are probably laid in living animals. And then once they stop having the ability to scratch themselves, i.e. once they've been killed by a lion and eaten, then the moths will start to eat the keratin. They won't be sort of scratched off. I think that's how it works, Simon. I hope that answers your question. I think that's what you were getting at. Now, our plan from this particular area is to be going towards Treehouse Dam. There were a few tracks of a female leopard sort of around Zoe's Road, which is the far western section, earlier this morning. And although we saw tracks of Karula and her cubs going south into Little Gowrie, which is the reserve to the south of us, it's interesting to try and find out who those female leopard tracks belong to. Could well be Shadow, come up on a hunting foray. We're hoping to be introduced to her cubs fairly soon as well. So let's pop across there and we'll see what we can find. I did have a brief sort of scrounge around there this morning when I was on tracking team. And I found one or two hyenas, which was quite interesting. And Raisa, thank you very much, Raisa. I did get it mixed up. Mvula came from Lion Sands, and Raisa says that Tingana came, we think, from the Kruger. And we are now, of course, doing all the DNA analysis, or we're not, but Panthera, the NGO, is, and they will tell us if there is any relationship between all of the leopards around here. And an interesting question from Ellen in New York. Panthera, of course, has told us that Mbula is 13 years old. And Ellen, your question is, could we not get more accurate information on Tingana's age from Panthera? Well, because of Raisa's very astute observations and very kind repeated information to me, which I seem to forget all the time. She did admonish me during the course of answering my question for not remembering the difference between the two of them. Sorry about that, Raisa. The answer is no, because Tingana comes from the Kruger, which means nobody knows when he was born exactly. Mvula comes from Lion Sands. He's been followed since he was a cub. So that's why it's easy to tell how old one is, and not so easy to tell how old the other one is. Same with Gajima, that sort of unrelaxed male leopard who's in Biffel's Hook, and there's quite a lot of sort of argument over how old he is. Some say about 5, some say about 7. Impossible to tell. We don't know where he comes from. And male leopards, that's often the case. The females, not so much, simply because they hang around in their mother's territories. So if we see them born as cubs, we normally, and they survive to adulthood, we'll normally see them, we'll know where they go to. But it is interesting to me because so often what would happen is that when I worked down at Londolozi or Dingala up in the north of the Timbavati, a male leopard would appear from nowhere. And somebody would say, you know who he looks like? He looks like that cub that went independent about 2 years ago that's come back now. Now, you know, unless you've got facial recognition technology in your head, the likes of which most sort of spy networks would be proud to own, I don't believe it's possible to tell that with that degree of accuracy that if you have seen a leopard 2.5 years ago and it comes back again, that you will recognize it. So I think sometimes it wouldn't surprise me at all to find that the DNA analysis of Mvula's scat shows that it isn't him that comes from Lion Sands, that he may have come from somewhere completely different. Because he would have been, while, yes, they may well have followed him until independence, when he popped up over here, how they knew it was him and how he was identified, there's always going to be some kind of a question as to how he was recognized and whether or not it is in fact the same leopard. I'm not saying it isn't, but I think it will be interesting to know. And so even though some people will say, oh, well, that's definitely, you know, X leopard from X time, 2 years later, I'm often a little bit suspicious about those sort of assertions. I think people like to know who they are. Everyone, we had an animal, was desperate to show it to you, and we went black screen, unfortunately. And it was an impala, a number of male impala that are now running back into the black screen zone. So I'm not going to follow them. Let's carry on while we have a good picture. Now, this is a very interesting question from Sandy in Florida, and I see where your thought process is going, Sandy, and I think if I am reading you correctly, I think that your guess might actually be a very accurate one. You're saying, is Tingana anywhere near where Mvula had her kill yesterday? Not Mvula, Karula had her kill yesterday. And the answer, Sandy, is no, not at the moment, but when we found his tracks yesterday evening, they were quite close by. So I'm guessing, Sandy, that you think perhaps that slightly full belly that we saw on Tingana is a result of him scavenging off Karula's kill, and that is entirely possible. It is well possible that he came across Karula and the cubs. She would have then scarpered down to the south, left the kill to him, and he would have then eaten the kill and would have been very useful energy for him, given that he was injured and possibly unable to hunt something anything like the size of that impala. The only thing that makes me think that isn't the case is that the kill's gone. So I don't think that he would have been able to finish it. He may have gone in there and had a bite off it to eat. I suspect then that it was lifted by hyenas. When a big male impala like that, which has had hardly anything of it eaten, disappears, it normally means that hyenas have come along, broken it apart and stolen it. Otherwise there'd be a piece of it remaining. There'd be a skull or a horn or a bit of skin, or I mean, if it had been small enough, maybe it would have even been hoisted into the tree there. Jean-Andre, why is there a look of such extreme displeasure on your face? He's going to tell me just now. Let's go across to Brent so that I can counsel Jean-Andre and bring him back to happiness.
So we found cheetah tracks, and they've crossed crossing back towards here. So we just came back to check around the pan if they weren't sleeping somewhere in the shade around here. I'm going to go check on northern boundary of cheetah plains, and let's have fingers. Looking very, very carefully here. And I didn't see any cheetah tracks up ahead. If they have beetled off, we'll go back and I'll show you. And it's a really beautiful, clear track back there. And you can see the claws and you can see the 3 lobes. Come on, cheetahs. Oh, where has my cheetah gone? Looks like they went for a drink at the pans and would have moved through here. Well done, Marilyn. That red-footed falcon was a new bird on Marilyn's list. Marilyn is now on 153 and the cheetah tracks are here. And they're going towards the boundary. No. Just sleep somewhere close by, cheetah. So from those tracks, it looks like they might have chased something. An impala, likely in this area, maybe a steenbokkie. So Mike is wondering, what is the lifespan of a cheetah in comparison to a leopard? It's generally a few years shorter, not too much shorter, probably 3 or 4 years shorter than a leopard. Come on, please don't. We don't want to find tracks on this road. We want to hope that they're somewhere in here. Just drop down. Those tracks were coming through here. Okay, I'm just going to concentrate now. The ground's quite hard, so it can be quite difficult to see tracks. You're looking for tracks there, Brian? Let's hope they don't cross. No tracks yet. There's a big road or path coming up here. Let's have a look. No tracks. Then we might go back to last track and go have a quick look there. So Lucy in South Bend, Indiana is wondering, are cheetah harder to see than leopards when looking for them? Not necessarily, Lucy. So they often lie up in far more conspicuous places, making them a bit easier to spot if you know what to look for. The thing that makes them difficult to see is the fact that they have such a vast home range that they move through. So sometimes you might not see them for a week or two because they're just in a far-flung other reach of their home range. I'm hoping, maybe, fingers crossed, that they caught something, which would mean they are somewhere in here. So we're just looping around this block. So it is another cheetah stick, Brian. Whoa, cheetah sticks. Cecilia is wondering how endangered cheetah are in Africa. And they are quite endangered. And a lot of that in being endangered is not actually from outside influence. And in certain circumstances, people have actually helped cheetah quite a lot. We take Namibia, for example. It's got a very healthy population of cheetah outside of the wildlife reserves on private farms and things. What happened is that people removed all the lion and leopard, because cheetah are a bit small, they don't really attack cows, lion, leopard and hyena. So the cheetah was sort of left alone because they weren't hunting the domestic livestock. So they managed to do quite well in that area. But a lot of the cheetah's problems comes down to the fact that they are all very closely related. So there's not a lot of genetic variety, and from the genetics you can trace it back to about 10,000 years ago. There was a massive crash in the cheetah population. No one's exactly sure what caused it, and there were less than 100 left in the whole of Africa. So when you don't have a big sort of selection of genetics or genetic traits to go by, any little disease or something like that will hit the population very hard. So, so that's why they're under threat. They also got a very low sperm count compared to most cats. They're also the only animal that needs a male-dominant sex ratio to breed. So you need to be more males than females. Females will pass 2 or 3 coalitions, maybe more, before deciding to mate. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons why cheetah are quite endangered, and they're probably going to die out in the next 10,000 years naturally, just a failed arm of the evolutionary tree. Okay, so let's go back to Lost Tracks. Di says, methinks Brent's going to be obsessed with cheetahs now. Well, no, Di, I'm obsessed with cats in general and tracking them. It is a really rewarding experience being able to find a track and go on to find that animal before everyone else. It sort of gives you a little bit of a rush. So we're going to continue to try to find those cheetah before everyone else. While we do that, let's go see what James is up to.
Give you a flush. Look, everybody, at the foothills of the Drakensberg Mountains. This we are looking at in the absence of any kind of mammal life, I'm afraid. But because it's a Sunday afternoon, we can take a relaxed look at the blue hills of the Drakensberg in the background. So, those kind of knobbly koppies, as we call them here, which are sort of rocky outcrops, form in a line from the edge of the Drakensberg there all the way into the Sabi Sands, and they terminate on a big koppie inside Mala Mala called Struiskopje. And on one of them is Ulusaba, Sir Richard Branson's lodge. He's got one there. And then they extend along a line which eventually sort of joins the Sand River and terminate, like I say, on Mala Mala. And beyond those, the northern Drakensberg, which extends at least 1,000 kilometers down the escarpment of magnificent South Africa. So we, because we are down below, are called the Lowveld. So we're in what we call the Lowveld, which just basically means low rangeland, if you like. And up above those mountains is the Highveld, which unsurprisingly means the highlands or high rangelands. That is all I have to say about that particular subject at this stage. Let us continue. We have found no tracks either. Came into the area where we thought Shadow might have popped her head earlier today, unless, as Gendre postulated, it was Karula who's come back to see what else she might be able to eat, given that her kill was stolen last night. Unsurprising that her kill was stolen, of course, a big male impala. She'd have struggled to hoist it into that very strange tree that she put it underneath, and so I'm not surprised in the slightest that the hyenas probably took it, and I'm also not surprised in the slightest that she may well have actually abandoned it as it got dark with those youngsters and taken them away because of the risk posed by having a rotting carcass at night with those two little cubs. And of course, as most of us know, she did lose her last cub to a hyena. To two hyenas, two nasty hyenas. Here are some impalas, Andre. Let us stop and be grateful for our Sunday afternoon impalas. Male impalas. There you are, Chris. You're looking at it. You want to know what the most abundant animal is. I suppose it's not the most abundant animal, it's the most abundant mammal that we get here, is the impala, I think. Unless there's something small like a bushveld gerbil, which there are many of that we don't know of. But I think you'll find that certainly the most abundant large mammal will be the impala, Chris. The most abundant animal, remember, includes anything from the animal kingdom and would probably, therefore, be one of the termite species. So whichever termite species is the most common, possibly the fungus-growing, the large fungus-growing termite, which makes those big mounds, Macrotermes natalensis, I'm going to guess that that is the most abundant animal in this area. What do you think the least abundant animal is, Gendre?
James.
I'm going to show you. Least abundant animal, everyone. Well, until very recently he was the least abundant. He's now non-existent, of course, and that is the ever sad pinchy whiner. That's where he used to live. He was the only freshwater crab that lived here, and the least abundant crustacean or of all animals here on the Djuma was pinchy whiner, the freshwater crab, who lived alone in that very sad little cave. A buffalo sat on it a little while back, and pinchy whiner, as far as we know, has gone to the great freshwater place where crabs go when they die. And I drove into town a few days ago, and I had to drive into town because despite the fact that I'm now a minor internet celebrity with 27 Twitter followers, I am still required to do mundane tasks like go and fetch water for Gendre to drink, buy bananas for him to eat because he eats 37 a day, and that sort of thing. And as I was driving out there, Eugene said to me, Eugene had to go to the airport, he said to me that the cattle in the area seemed to be looking much better, and I had to agree with him. So I think it's Katie in South Bend, Indiana. You want to know if the water has brought some relief to the drought-stricken animals and perhaps vegetable gardens and crops of the local people outside here, and the answer is yes, it has. Definitely, it's caused a flush of grass, and so the cattle, while not looking anything like as magnificent as the buffalo here, they're certainly looking a lot better than they did when I left here for my leave, which was about 3 weeks ago. The cattle were looking absolutely horrendous, and they were staring down the barrel of a large-scale starvation. Now, this is not to say that we're out of the woods, for while it does look verdant green everywhere you look over here, that is a kind of a false sense of security. The water table is still very low. We've had a bit of rain that's caused this flush, which is wonderful, but the water table is not going to be anything like as high as it would normally at this time of year, which means that as we go into the dry season, which is our winter time, any time from sort of May on to November, sometimes it can go that long without any rain at all. And if we've had a normal season of rain, that's no problem at all. But now we haven't. We've had probably about a third of the rain that we would normally. And so while it looks green now, if we don't get any further rain, come November or October, when the spring starts and the heat really starts to build, there's going to be trouble. So those animals that are looking much better in the communities out in the villages, yes, they're looking better, but they're not out of the woods. And that means, of course, that the poverty-stricken people who own them are also still staring down the barrel of a real shortage. So it's a difficult time. Let us have another look at the vista, given that there's nothing else to look at. Andre, I will stop the car as you've asked me to, without leaking forward endlessly. There we go. That is due east, everybody. That is due east over the Greater Kruger National Park. Brent is somewhere out there, driving around, probably at 70 miles an hour, tracking cheetahs. That's where Cheetah Plains is, just underneath that sort of cloud you can see on the right-hand side there. And Charmaine, I think it is, in Britain. Is that Charmaine or Charlene? I've forgotten. Rebecca? Charmaine in the UK. You're a bird lover and you want to know a bit more about the birds here, and have any of the migratory birds left, or have they all left? Certainly some have left. The Wahlberg's eagles have absconded. They're in North Africa already. Most of the woodland kingfishers have gone. I did see 2 the other day. Then I heard the massing of the European bee-eaters yesterday. You hear them massing in the evenings, and they do this for about a week or 2 just before they leave here. You hear them calling high up at night, and then they land again, and then a few days later they will fly. And I think they fly largely at night time. Maybe yesterday was the day that they left, because I haven't heard anything further from the European bee-eaters. Then the starlings, the plum-coloured starlings, were doing the same thing. They were massing on the trees the other day, and they are probably going to leave very soon. So most of the migrants, if they haven't left, are thinking about it and are about to disappear. The barn swallows, interestingly, I did see a few of the other day, and I thought that was quite unusual. I thought they would have gone by now. I suspect that a few of them would have hung around, and although their migratory tendencies are normally triggered by day length, they can also be triggered by food shortage. And while there's been there's an unusual amount of food around for this time of year because of those late rains, and so maybe a few of them have stayed longer than they would have. There you go, Charmaine. Thank you for your question. Just listening to the Game Drive radio. All right, I'm just going to quickly turn to Mike on the radio. He wants to know a little bit. Go ahead, Mike. Mike, you were looking for one of us? Lions apparently heading on to the reserve. Negative, Mike. Can you give me the location? I'm on Balanites Road now. So lions just over here seems to have crossed onto Vuatela. So apparently around here possibly. Lovely, thank you. Or just south of here. Okay, this is good news. So, Mike just said to me that lions came across from Arethusa, or there were fresh tracks of lions coming from Arethusa on top of the vehicle tracks from this morning. That is odd, in so much as lions don't normally move in the middle of the day, especially on a lovely, relaxed Sunday autumnal day like this. But let's go and have a look. I did see those hyenas that I mentioned to you earlier. I saw them this morning down over there, where quite close to the western boundary of Djuma, which borders on Arathusa, and apparently the lions came into this block over here, which is quite a thick block. But let's go down the Triple M or Arathusa break, and we'll see if we can't pick up those tracks. It's quite unusual. I wonder if those hyenas weren't perhaps smelling around there this morning for the same reason. Talking about roads there, and Peter, you're in Jacksonville, and you ask how are the roads maintained and do we trim the trees? Yes, we do. Well, we don't. Taxon and Aubrey and the Djuma staff do a lot of the tree trimming, and then they have a whole crew that does road maintenance. And every reserve has a different kind of way of doing it. And I was pleasantly amazed and enthralled by the state of Cheetah Plains' roads yesterday. They were like very smooth highways. So they've obviously just done theirs. So yeah, that's how it works, Jackson. Not from Jacksonville, sorry. Maybe I'm getting myself horribly mixed up today. Just going to watch the road here. There are some male leopard tracks, which is quite interesting, and some monkey tracks. Apparently Tingana did come from this direction, so perhaps it's Tingana's tracks, and he headed off there. He is up further north of us there. Anyway, there's a nice clearing up ahead here. We'll go and reassess things there. Yeah, these are old male leopard tracks. They've got lots of things on them. Yes, Cat in Tampa, I have to ask the same question. Where have all the Ellies gone? Answer is, I don't know. I wish I did. I heard them calling when I was sitting reading my book, like I said to you, but they have since absconded. I don't know, it's so funny with those elephants, you know, they come and they go, suddenly they'll be everywhere, and then suddenly they'll be nowhere. And it is most frustrating. Now, this is one of Tingana's actually relatively favourite routes. He comes past here. In fact, you can see this is exactly what he's done. There is tracks there. You see them there, Jean-Luc. That's his tracks. There. And there. That's the male leopard track. And what he does is he actually marks this bush. Just there. That sort of silver cluster leaf bush. He marks. You can see the tracks head towards it. He lifts his leg, has a spray, and then continues on his way down here. I think that's precisely what happened yesterday evening. These tracks look to me like they're from yesterday evening. No lion tracks here. Just keep an eye out here in the clearing. Of course, a lion does like to lie on the edge of a clearing. It gives them a good view of things. Someone was around here today looking at these tracks, I think. We'll just keep looking here in case. The interesting thing is that Mvula, who, of course, we know thanks to Raisa, came from Lion Sands, not Tingana. He has been around as a kind of dispersal male at the moment. He seems to have lost his territory or be on the verge of losing it. And so when we see male leopard tracks, the assumption was always, well, they must be Tingana's in this particular area. But they could well be Mvula's, as he kind of stakes out a new life as a lonely, aged male leopard. Just continue down this way. We're going to turn on to what they call the Triple M break, but is basically the boundary between Arathusa and us, and we'll see if we can't pick up those lion tracks. This male leopard has come all the way down here. Let's keep an eye out. This is Arathusa to our right-hand side. This looks like Mike from Cheetah Plains coming up here now, so we'll get an update from him as to exactly what's going on. James, about the tsetse fly. I'm going to answer it now. Let's just get an update here, and then we will carry on. How's it going?
Great. All right.
Are you well?
Yeah.
Where did the tracks go from?
I haven't found any. It Ali updated me that the tracks are over other tracks. So I don't know.
In this area?
Yeah, from Aratuza on the corner there.
Oh.
I think into the retailer.
So you didn't see anything?
No.
Because there were some tracks coming out further up there, One-Eyed Pan Road, this morning.
I spoke to Ephraim after I heard that update as well, and he reckons that, earlier in the day. They were.
Okay.
So
All right, well, I'll just
someone
do a loop around that way.
the tracks or,
Okay.
All right.
Enjoy. Enjoy the drive. Behave yourselves. Okay, behave you too. So, a wonderful question about a fairly unwonderful animal. That is the tsetse fly. And the tsetse fly, the question is basically, how do they affect the other people around this area? Because this is known as an area of tsetse fly. Well, it isn't anymore. That's the thing. So it used to be. It used to be an area known to be riddled with tsetse fly, which of course carries a disease called trypanosomiasis or sleeping sickness, and that affects livestock and it affects people as well. So what used to happen prior to 1898, people would come into this area only during the winter months. They'd graze their cattle. They'd live here, the transport riders would come through during the winter, and then in summer everyone would clear off, either onto the coastal plain or up into the mountains, where it was cooler, and the tsetse fly would then have only wild animals to eat. Then, in 1898, I think it was, or 1896, one of the two, we had an epidemic called the rinderpest, and it was I think it's a virus that swept through this area, and it basically wiped out all cloven-hooved animals. And what that did was to eventually, it killed off the tsetse fly, quite naturally, killed off the tsetse fly. And so it meant that people were then able to live in the area permanently. And it's also why this area, which became hotly contested after that, I'm just keeping an eye out for the tracks, became hotly contested. You know, the white settlers and the hunters came in and they contested with the Shangaan people who'd been using this area for years and years and years. But it then became possible to live in this area permanently, simply because the tsetse fly was no longer here. So it doesn't affect local people here at all. There's tracks of a herd of buffalo going across here, which is interesting. And were there to be lions following, did you see a lion? Andre's seen the lion track. Okay, while we examine these, let's go across to Brent. He's got something interesting to show you.
Alas, the cheetah ventured northwards. So, unfortunately, they are gone, but that is not necessarily the worst thing in the world, because they've got to come back at some stage. So they crossed just over here, somewhere a little bit further ahead, and went heading to the north. So I'm just going to have to update Taxon, because they might pop out in Torchwood. Oh, hey! They're taller than Konzo inside at, what's it called? Jacobin Open. Okay. Yeah. Sharp. Come for. Next time. There we are. It's one of the trackers from Chitwa, who was also walking with me through the block. We were looking for those cheetah. So we're going to start heading westwards. Jeff would like to know, what is the main cause of death in adult cheetahs? It's generally run-ins with other predators that sometimes they get injured and then they're unable to hunt. They are very slightly built, so any injury really affects their abilities to hunt. And definitely as they get older, they also get slower. Like all of us, especially James. He thought he could beat me in a race, but not. I'm still going to gloat on that one for a while. So we're going to start heading back towards Djuma so we can be back for fireside chat. It is a It is not a short amble from the far-flung east, southeast, but it's been wonderful, nice exploring those beautiful areas with you guys down here, and so exciting, a lot more exploration to come. I can't wait to learn all the little nooks and crannies and little riverbeds and systems, and hopefully we'll be able to pull a leopard that we haven't seen before on drive one of these days. Or an old favorite like Mr. Q. And temperature is dropping quite rapidly. Let me just get hold of Taxon. Well, James said he was following buffalo tracks and looking for the lion tracks, so let's go see how that's going.
Lions! Excuse me, everybody. Here's the Nkahuma Pride. Joy and rapture, unforeseen. We found the tracks going across the road, well, John Ray did, and we just thought, you know what, let's quickly drive in on them and see if they're here, and here they are. Isn't that wonderful? So this is the Nkahuma Pride, and for those of you who don't know who the Nkahuma Pride is, perhaps you're new, they provide the bulk of our live viewing. 9 lionesses at the moment, my favourite of which is Amber Eyes, so named Gendre because she has
Green eyes.
amber eyes. Well done, yes, correct. So that's what's going on here, and I wonder if we shouldn't try and call Brent Leo Smith in, simply because we are going, sorry Jean-Ray, he hates it when I turn the wrong way, simply because we are going to have to go to the fireside chat fairly soon. I don't think these lions are going to do anything, certainly not before much later, and probably before it gets dark. But let's spend 5 minutes with them, and then we will head towards the fireside chat. I'm just going to call Mike again because I think he would really like to see these things. Mike, do you copy, Mike? But if he ain't listening to his radio, then nothing I can do. Can't help him. I can't help him. And this, of course, is exactly what Tingana was doing. It's exactly what lions do. Why I'm not hearing him. He is trying to communicate with me. There we go. Sorry, Mike, I'm having trouble with my radio here. Did you copy my message? The tracks crossed just south of where I saw you. We've got them here about 150 meters into the block. You'll just follow my vehicle tracks off-road. Now Brent is trying to get hold of me. Go ahead, Brent. The block just east of Triple M Break, north of, well, basically about 300 meters south of the Power Lines Junction. Not Power Lines Junction, south of Ballinitis Junction. Wow. I think I probably came across this morning, you know, after I was around this area, because the buffalo tracks weren't here. So these buffalo crossed sometime during the middle of the day. Obviously, then became down here in the little clearing or meadow, this little glade of soft soil and nice grass. And they're just resting quietly here. What a stroke of luck that was. Well done, Genre, of spotting the tracks there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I must give you credit sometimes. I mustn't just abuse you solidly for 3 hours at a time. It's just not nice.